In 2008, by hosting the Olympic Games, the Chinese Communist Party officially bid farewell to Deng Xiaoping's will of keeping a low profile and entered the era of the rise of great power. Under this new parent strategic framework, the sub-strategies of all aspects of the CCP have changed accordingly. Quietly, step by step, and the external policy of the CCP has been adjusted subtly, which includes the strategy for Taiwan. After living nearly 20 years in China, I felt it's necessary to remind Taiwanese societies that had lost their ability to understand China, and thus opened a column, the Taipei Observatory in the Economic Daily. 3 years later, I returned to Taiwan. The column was included in my first book in Taiwan, To Whom Taiwan Belongs To, and its general conclusion is, Taiwan belongs to the world. Now, 7 years after returning to Taiwan, China is no longer the China of that year, and Taiwan is no longer the Taiwan of that year. I feel it's necessary to renew the same concern in the new environment, because China's economic size in the past 7 years has been twice times larger than that year. But its pressure comes from the internal, and external is also at least twice times. And the problems I predicted 7 years ago have been reflected step by step. Some issues have approached the tipping point. Under the new situation, it is necessary for Taiwan society to update its understanding of China in order to pursue good luck and avoid bad luck. This article will focus on the two issues that Taiwan has rarely discussed in recent years, the CCP's strategy about internalization for Taiwan, and the mistaken perception that Taiwan society equated China with the Chinese Communist Party. The 3 years of 2007-2009 marked a watershed in the CCP's attitude towards Taiwan. The previous keynote was political negotiations between both sides. And the subsequent keynote was, to treat Taiwan as a place that has been reclaimed and to internalize Taiwan affairs. This shift is a process of warm water boiled frog, and it took at least 6 years. The attitude has not been verified until July 2015 when the 3 big moves are implemented, such as visa-free for Taiwanese, and Taiwan compatriots chip card, its equivalent to the identity card, and Taiwan court judgment results can be implemented by Chinese courts in the territory. But before the 3 major policies, there were already many signs. For example, Taiwanese office staff in China taking Taiwan as their own place and going directly to the local government, agricultural and fishing associations and so on. When the Democratic Progressive Party came to power, the actions of internalization from CCP did not diminish, but the name and manner became more secluded. For example, under the 3 subsidies for youth program, young Taiwanese were subsidized to go to China to start their own businesses, and encourage Taiwan to face unemployment young scholars to work in China. In addition, various associations of friendship with China have been sponsored to organize propaganda and tourism activities, to set up pro-Chinese media, and to influence or even dominate the content orientation of Taiwan's major media. It can be said that the plan of internalized affairs for Taiwan's society and civilians has been completely rolled out. According to this situation, the joke in the past, it does matter the Taiwan Affairs Office than the office of Ma Ying-jeou has evolved into, it does matter the Taiwan Affairs Office than the office of Tsai Ing-wen. Some alike evolution will be not unthinkable. Before the DPP's first reign in 2000, the Communist Party's consistent stance towards Taiwan was that the Kuomintang was equal to Taiwan. No matter how internal struggles within the CCP and how public opinion in Taiwan changed, the CCP's strategy towards Taiwan maintained a keynote. The Republic of China ended in 1949, and the 2 sides were the legacy of the Kuomintang Communist Civil War. However, from the second term of Ma Ying-jeou, the CCP has gradually recognized that the KMT is not equal to Taiwan, and shifted its focus from party-to-party negotiations to Taiwan civilians. But because the CCP has not really practiced the Taiwan studies for decades, the flexible policies of ingratiation to Taiwan's civilian does not take off the aforementioned domestic internalized route. Aware of this problem, the Kuomintang struggled to win back the title of KMT is equal to Taiwan. and consciously or unconsciously misinterprets the various ingratiation policies from the CCP towards the domestic internalized for Taiwan society as Kuomintang's achievements in cross-strait relations. If so, that's still okay. However, some of the Kuomintang heads in a doomsday mood hastily bundled their own commercial interests into the policy in the direction of the CCP's tendency to internalize Taiwan, thus violating international common sense. Even the CCP is puzzled by the oddly service trade before the goods trade negotiation sequence, and the following 2014 years 30 seconds forcibly through the agreement about service trade of the farce. The Kuomintang wanted to win both, defending the title and making profit at the same time. The result is the Sunflower Movement formally buried the title of KMT as equal to Taiwan. The CCP originally regarded the goods trade agreement as a goodwill to the Taiwanese society. Unexpectedly, under the manipulation of the Kuomintang's comprador bosses, and became secretly tied to the financial sector provisions the service trade agreement signed in advance, which paved the way for the DPP to resort to the interests of the general people, and eventually led to the failure of even goods trade agreements. Beijing's goodwill has turned into malice, and the popular opinion of Taiwan's younger generations has begun to oppose China in an all-round way, raising the antagonism situation of cross-strait. Beijing also have to take into account the mood of the Chinese people. They can only draw the red line for Taiwan, one China, otherwise, shaking the earth and mountains until now. The biggest cognitive mistake that the CCP has committed in the past 60 years is that KMT is equal to Taiwan. As a result of this mistake, the CCP has never really understood Taiwan and has always lagged one step behind the status quo in Taiwan. So the effect of each step of the policy is counterproductive. But now the CCP is aware that KMT is not equal to Taiwan, and that it has also begun to avoid making another mistake of DPP is equal to Taiwan. In contrast, the biggest mistake the Taiwanese society has made in the past is to think that CCP is equal to China, and that it is becoming more and more certainty. The most obvious phenomenon is that Taiwanese society, especially the younger generation, now blames all Chinese people for the repression and misdeeds of the CCP against Taiwan. This mistake will pay the price for Taiwan in the future, just as the CCP has paid for it in the past under the belief that KMT is equal to Taiwan. In fact, the KMT is only a phenomenon in the historical stage of Taiwan, and the CCP will eventually be only a phenomenon in a long historical period for China. After the lessons of modern history, the Chinese people have the idea of an ideal government in their minds, while the CCP is far from that ideal. And the vast majority of Chinese people are clear in their hearts. And even most of the CCP members are also clear for it. Although the CCP is now a too-big-to-fail authoritarian regime, the situation is stronger than the people, or it is forced to reform itself, or it is waiting to collapse. Today, if a truly anonymous poll is conducted in China, asking all the people including communists whether the CCP's one-party dictatorship can be maintained for 30 years, my observation and judgment is that there will be no more than 20 people answering yes. In other words, under the vision of the vast majority of the Chinese people for the future, the CCP may now be a too-big-to-fail group, but the CCP does not equal the future of China. Taiwanese society has become accustomed to dealing with authoritarian CCP regimes, but there is little chance of dealing with the Chinese people. But Taiwanese society must begin to be psychologically prepared. Sooner or later, you will be dealing with the Chinese people, not the CCP regime. Therefore, Taiwan's current anti-China sentiment, which does not separate the Chinese Communist Party from China, will be dangerous, because that equals letting the baby in the bath basin and dirty water are poured into the gutter together. The CCP is clear about this, so it takes the anti-China in Taiwan society as a leverage point to provoke the nationalist sentiments of the Chinese people, and pitch it as anti-Taiwan independence. Just like the KMT in 2012-2016, the CCP is trying to protect the title of CCP is equal to China. The basic logic of its attempt to persuade the Chinese people, Taiwan is protected by the United States and Japan. Only the CCP can repel the United States, Japan, to regain Taiwan. The more anti-Chinese Taiwan is, the stronger the logic will be in the minds of the Chinese people. Thus, the CCP was able to intimidate Taiwanese society at every turn by saying, "Do not be the hostile to the 1.3 billion people of China." In fact, things can be completely different. Taiwanese, as long as they see through the CCP's united front tactics, should not be confused by its CCP is equal to China, clearly distinguished between China and the CCP. Let the Chinese people know that Taiwan society is not so superficial, and regards the CCP as the whole of China. To put it more bluntly, Taiwan society has been fooled for decades by the stereotype of the KMT is equal to Taiwan. Will it be fooled again for another decades by the stereotype that the CCP is equal to China? Many politicians in Taiwan, whether blue or green, all need to take their share of the responsibility for the stultifying phenomenon. And many of them know that the culprit is the CCP, but because some of them accept the CCP's feeding, or some have an invisible number in the hands of the CCP, they dare not shout anti-CCP and only dare to shout anti-China. Dragging a large number of innocent Chinese people into the water stimulates the Chinese people's hostility towards Taiwan society, and greatly increases the obstacles to the future of Taiwan society and the Chinese people. This is unforgivable and unpardonable. At the ongoing moment when the CCP continues to make Taiwan affairs domestic internalized, Taiwan society must demonstrate its understanding about the CCP is not equal to China, and emphasize the historical fact that KMT is not equal to Taiwan. Only in this way can Taiwan society be understood by Chinese society, and arouse the Chinese people to research about why Taiwan can make the KMT is not equal to Taiwan. Trust me, this will be the best way to defend Taiwan right now, and leaves room for future dealings with the Chinese people.